Here's another way to define success is that it's living according to your values. Whatever your values are, if you live consistent with your values, then you're living a successful life, right? And it doesn't matter necessarily what it looks like. It matters, are you true to who you are?
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you all for joining us on another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Bronson Hill. So Bronson, please, if you don't mind taking a moment or two, just, sharing with us a bit about your background and what you're into, and then maybe please share something with us that, most folks wouldn't know about you.
So I appreciate you having me. It's good to be back. I think it's my second time on the show, so I'm excited to be here. And the gentle art of crushing it sounds like you walk slowly but carry a big stick. You're just gonna, make a huge impact in the world. I started my career primarily in medical device sales. Did that for 10 years. Had a great job, was making over $200K a year. Would go in with surgeons where I'd wear scrubs and help them on their heart surgical procedures. It was very interesting, learned a lot. Didn't have any complaints on the job itself, except it was hard to take time off. And I had to I was chained to the kind of the 8 to 5 schedule. And so I wanted to have more freedom over my time. I wanted to be able to be someone who creates, who is a creator, and also can travel. And so I'm able to do that. Now we have about $200 million in multifamily real estate. We've raised close to $40 million for different assets. Now we've branched out into ATM machines, car washes, oil and gas, other types of things. And I'm also the author of the book behind me here, Fire Yourself, Replace Your Working Income with Passive Income in 3 years or less, which I know you're in the middle of reading, which is fun. So yeah, all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, I am in the middle of reading that book, and I'd like to actually, I think it'll come up a few times here, but because you mentioned your medical device, sales rep position, there's a story in the book where, after your shift or maybe in the middle of the shift, you were sitting in your car, you checked on an investment and you had, lost a lot of money. Do you mind sharing with us a little bit about that story and then kind of, what you learned from it? And
Yeah, absolutely. That's a painful but memorable story. And this, I'll just give the listener the context. So yeah, I was sitting in my car after one of my, after going in, I was wearing my scrubs while selling medical devices, came out, the market was about to close. And I realized, I smile because it's so embarrassing, but I had lost $70,000 in one day. And it was through an options trading strategy. I'd made about 20K over the last 4 or 5 months, but in one day there's this system and I didn't do the system correctly or something. And so I ended up losing a bunch of money. So there was, it was very painful. It was very hard. I mean, even just talking about it for a while felt so really, that was a third of my net worth or more. And so it was really hard just to even own that, okay, this happened. I did this, right? But I think, in everything, I have a friend who says this, in life, we should look at it that everything is either success or it's seminar, right? It's either it's a success or it's a seminar. And so that was a seminar, that was a seminar. It was a $70,000 seminar. And I determined that I was not going to waste what happened. I was going to learn from that. And I know people that are uber successful that have lost millions of dollars in real estate deals and other things. And it's like, as long as you learn, nothing is wasted. And so, I look at it like that was getting a degree in something that, okay, this is something that I'm not the best person. I'm not the best person to be an active options trader, right? So I learned that. So I learned there are other things, other gifts that I have that can really serve me well. And so, one of the best things about money, and Warren Buffett says there's 2 rules of investing. Rule number 1 is don't lose money. Rule number 2 is don't forget about rule number 1, that losing money is so important. But when you do lose, it's important to try to get everything out of a situation, or if you win, you get everything out of a situation that you can, so that you can say, okay, what is the learning here? Because obviously, losing, it feels a lot worse than winning, right? So you don't really learn when you win. You just, when you're winning, you pat yourself on the back and you give a big, yeah, I did it. Then you move on. But when you lose, or you have a failure, or you didn't do as well as you wanted, that's something that, that's something that it sticks with you. So it's something that I think, it's not that it didn't happen. It absolutely happened. I can learn from it, I can grow from it, and realize I don't want a repeat of that. And I've had some other great successes in other areas because of that.
I truly think that the best way for us to learn is by doing. You really cannot learn that you don't want to do options trading unless you try it, right? And
Right.
speaking about success, I'm a big believer that we all should define, success and what that means for ourselves. So, with that being said, would you mind sharing with our audience, how you define success, and then how also, you discovered success for yourself?
Yeah, so I think just like as you said, success. It's however you define it. So I think I don't know. This I guess it's changed over the years. I guess it depends on the day, but I think for me, success is. I think financial freedom is a part of success because it allows you to kind of live out of a sense of purpose and what are you here to do? What's your purpose on this earth? And when you live from that place, it comes across as a very much more authentic place. I'm a person of faith as well, so sometimes you can't serve both God and money. But if you have to go to work for the paycheck, because you're paycheck to paycheck, in a way you do have to serve money, right? There's no choice. You have to go to work. When you're financially free, you have the ability to not only have control over your time, but you also can get back. And so I think when you have the ability to find ways to get back to the world, to get back to the community, get back to others, it's a huge, it's a huge thing in life. And I think as far as success in my life, I think one of the things I'm most proud of is being a parent. I have a daughter who's turning 11 this month, and just love being her dad. It's just I feel like it's the most rewarding thing in the world, and no one else can do that job. Like I'm the guy, so it's like I want to be the best dad I can be, and even success and financial freedom can help me to be successful as a dad. And obviously, I still I'm growing in that, and I need to remind myself to turn the phone off or to put it away or to just kind of really spend the quality time that she needs because these years, I don't know if you have kids, Doug, but the time we have is precious, and it does go very quickly. And so I think I think success is I kind of coming back, here's another way to define success is that it's living according to your values. If you whatever your values are, if you live consistent with your values, then you're living a successful life, right? And it doesn't matter necessarily what it looks like. It matters, are you true to who you are?
Yeah, I love that. And I also am a man of faith, so definitely can relate there. I'm also a father, right? And yeah, I mean, I'm also growing as a father. So I, am constantly trying to, check myself and put the phone away, such as like you said. And it's a challenge and it's a balance. However, our children, our relationships, like, our wife and our relationship with God, right? Our cherished relationships, these are some of the most valuable things that we could be spending time on. And so I love that you touched on that quite a bit. Would you mind sharing with us one of the, your favorite successes that you're either a part of, or you solely created?
Yeah, I think let's see, my favorite successes. I mean, it's always great when we have an investment deal that goes well. It's always exciting when things perform as the way they should. And we've had some deals some multifamily deals that have gone really well. We've had some that have lately that have not gone as well. And so, capital call situation or two. And so, that stuff happens. But I think, as far as successes, the book, I mean, actually, it's interesting. A year ago, I think this weekend or next weekend, I went to a Tony Robbins event in Florida, and I made a decision to write the book, and now it literally just came out like last week. So here it's kind of fun to see how with the process of just making a decision and being a person of your word and moving forward. It's just amazing. These are very simple things, but when you make a commitment to yourself and you say, I'm going to do this, and you just fully commit to it, it's really fun to see how things can happen. So I'm proud of the book. I'm proud of some of the things we've accomplished. I'm proud that I was able to leave my job and have this great job. And my family was like, "Why would you ever leave your job?" And I was like, "You're making good money, and it's the golden handcuffs, right?" But when I left, I was like, I've been able to, not only write the book, do podcasts and travel. I've actually traveled. This will be my sixth international trip coming up on Monday. I'm going to New Zealand for a couple weeks. And so just being able to do some of the things that I value and I enjoy. So I think success is, living from a place of your values where you can, live that life day in, day out that you want to live. And so being able to do the things that kind of the goals that I set out for the year. And we're recording this early November, and it's like, I get kind of contemplative around the end of the year of like, what happened this year? What do I want to create next year? And it's always this constant, like, looking forward, looking back, and it's a cool time. But it's also like it's interesting. It's interesting how success is just how we define it, right? So I think that's really important to make sure you understand what your goals are.
Yeah, I love that. And, take inventory of where we're at, reflecting against the goals frequently. Your book, like you said, I'm reading it. I'm on the fifth chapter. I shared that with you a few minutes ago, and it's awesome. It is an incredible book. So everybody listening, do yourself a favor and reach out to Bronson. Get a copy of his book. From my sort of, and I'm fairly new to understanding, wrapping my head around passively investing in syndications and what the returns look like and how to analyze deals and all that fun stuff. But that book goes into, it's so much more than that, right? It talks quite a bit. It reminds me a little bit of, some Robert Kiyosaki, like you're sort of, defining assets and where you should be putting your money in, but also you're Robert Kiyosaki-ish in the sense of you're pulling sort of the curtain up. I think you mentioned it about the Wizard of Oz and, exposing like inflation and exposing, stocks and how they can be not the best investments, right? And so, with that being said, would you mind sharing with us? I don't know if you have an elevator pitch or go into, a little bit, really as long as you want to, about why we should follow you on Instagram and other platforms, why we should also get a copy of the book.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason I wrote the book is I've had over 1,500 one-on-one phone calls with high net worth investors, and there's a lot of people. I mean, there's so many, I would say, tens of thousands or hundreds or millions of people that are out there that, just don't really understand what is it. All I know are stocks and bonds, and people don't realize that between 1929, when the stock market crashed 89%, which is crazy. If you look at the stock market, let's say it's 33,000, the Dow Jones, it would have gone down to around 3,300 and it would not have recovered for 25 years. So just what that actually was like between 1929 and 1954, and that doesn't even count inflation. So just imagine if we had a crash and things went down that far, and for the next, until 2048, they didn't recover. That'd be just devastating for a lot of people. And so there was a time where people said, well, back during that time, why in the world would you ever buy stocks, right? Of course, ironically, that was the best time to buy stocks. But right now, when we have so much, I think, there's over half of the stock market, or about half the stock market, is people's retirement accounts. It's become traditional investing, and the reason it has been, and for me, there's a term called an RIA, which is a registered investment advisor. So I was a registered investment advisor. I'm not anymore. I left that to do syndication 4 or 5 years ago, but I still call myself an RIA, a recovering investment advisor, right? So I'm not licensed, but because I saw it was like that look behind the curtain. There's all these misalignment of interests. It said over 50% of people managing, like money managers managing over 100 million, had $0 invested in their funds that they're managing. There's something wrong with that, right? Or if your portfolio goes down by 50%, Wall Street is still going to get their fees. They'll say the average fee for a mutual fund is 1.2%, when in reality it's more like 3.2%. They have all these hidden fees they don't have to disclose. And then in addition to the 3.2%, if you have a money manager, like an advisor, like a Morgan Stanley or Smith, one of these groups, Merrill Lynch, whatever, they will take another 2% on top. So, they're taking 5% or 5.5% of your total returns, when the returns are typically only 4 to 7% of the market. So they're taking almost all the returns. So again, people that I know, like, that become really wealthy, they don't use the traditional ways of saving money. Now, it can be okay for some people and doing index funds, and that's great. This book is really designed for somebody that's saying, no, I have a business, I have a job, and I make money doing it. But if I stop working or I sell the business, I don't know how to make money. And this is basically about cash flow. And that's something that Wall Street doesn't really help you with often. Maybe you can do simple things, but this is about different types of assets, not in Wall Street, but in Main Street. And the whole point is, how can I get to where I have the option to fire myself and just not work if I can't, if I don't want to, if I have a family member thing going on that I need to take care of them. Those are all considerations.
That's I love that. And there's a story, and I believe you shared it when Randy interviewed you, but it's also in the book. So it has to do with inflation and then apples and oranges, right? And how they can kind of switch out the assets that they're measuring or whatever. And so do you mind sharing that with the audience?
Yeah, so there's inflation, the CPI, we call it the CP lie. It's not, a lot of government statistics are not, they can't be trusted. And that's unfortunate because it really erodes the faith in the government. But a lot of people believe it. And so they believe that, at the time of this, inflation is between 3.5% and 4%, somewhere in that range. I think it's more like 7.5%, 8%, right? Which is very different. It's a very different place to be if you think inflation is 3% than if you think it's 8%. So, we're seeing costs on everything rise, right? So, the way that they use this indexing is they'll use several ways. They'll use substitution. So they'll say, if you love apples and the price of apples goes up 50%, they'll say, well, you would switch to oranges because that's just what you would do. Or if you have an apartment that's a 2-bedroom apartment and you're paying $1,500 a month, they'd say, well, if rents go up and your rent goes up, you would move down to a 1-bedroom that's 1,500. It's the same price. So there's no change. Both those examples, there's no change in inflation, which is just totally not the way that works. So I think that the challenge for a lot of government officials and stuff is they're trying to, hey, don't panic, don't worry, because again, if people knew that inflation that the last couple of years has been 10 to 15% or higher, people would be spending money as quick as they get it, right? And so what we're seeing, because of the incredible currency creation, it's over 40% over a 2-year period between February 2020 and February 2022, either physical currency or money in bank accounts. There was over like 40.3% increase in the money supply. And so no wonder everything costs 40, 50% more. Everything. You go to the store, it's like, well, why did this happen? Whatever. It's like, well, it's because they created more currency. That's one of the reasons. So I think in general, having a plan for inflation, that's something that we know over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, things are going to continue to inflate. So that's why I love owning real assets such as real estate, precious metals, getting into other business type ventures and things, if you can use the best ways, if you can use debt, long-term debt, such as 30, 40-year debt that's at a low rate, which is harder to find now, but you can still find relatively low rates and then buy assets that will be worth more in the future.
Hmm. Yeah, and this is still, a lot of this is me, being new to educating myself about sort of, finances and how to beat inflation, and how you talk quite a bit about how to use inflation, to your advantage and to create wealth for yourself. And so, but again, please, listeners, check out the book, get a copy of it to dive deeper into that. Again, I highly recommend it. And so, but for this point in time, what I'd like to do is just shift the conversation a little bit and ask you this fun question, which I love, which is, if you were to go back to age 18, taking with you everything that you know right now, what would you do, if anything, differently to actually like fast track your success?
So it's interesting. I just had a guy on my podcast earlier today. His name is Cody Davis, and he's an amazing guy. He's 23 years old. He has nearly 200 multifamily units, and he did it all with seller financing. So he literally had either no money out of pocket or a little money out of pocket. And I just think, I don't know, even now I'm like, man, that sounds amazing. You just go pick up these places for, things that make sense and somebody doesn't want to own them anymore. And so I think just, it's the skills, right? It's the skills, it's the learning, it's getting around people. I think I'm grateful for all the learning I had. I actually was a youth pastor for 4 or 5 years when I was kind of in college and out of college. I loved that. But, I think there's this saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So you also have to kind of be kind to yourself. But I mean, I think for anybody, I think really the takeaway is, what would you tell people to do? I think the biggest thing, there's 2 ways people get ahead financially. And really this is, or I think in just about every area of life, but, and they sound really simple, but they're incredibly profound. The first is through networking. So by going to events, it's not just going to, tire kicker events, but sometimes paying to go to events, going to events that are conferences, or we host an annual conference in LA, and, we'll have super high caliber people there. And I've gone to a lot of other conferences all over the country. And so conferences are great. Meetups are great. Because what'll happen is there's this saying, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? So if you want to change, you want to grow in areas of your spirituality, your wealth, your fitness, getting around people that are next level is the way to do it. I mean, there's really, Tony Robbins says proximity is power. And it's like, I was running Spartan. There's I think you asked what if most people don't know about you. I do Spartan races. So I do these extreme obstacle races. I just did a 13-mile race in San Luis Obispo, California. I finished 7th of about 40 people in a nationally ranked race, and so I felt pretty good about that. But again, I'm around. I have a trainer or a coach now that like helps me to like I see progress and I'm getting better. And it's harder to go from, I think I finished 13th in the last national race. So this is like a big improvement, right? I feel much better, and I'm actually feeling better in the run. So I think, getting around the right people. The second thing besides networking is education. So reading books. This year, I've read 76 books so far this year. My goal is 80. I'm going to try to get to 85 or so. And it's just, the more you can read, the more you can learn in all different avenues, the more it's going to open up for you, because everything relates to everything else. You read a biography, it relates to investing, it relates to the time period, it relates to social interactions, it relates to a lot of things. And so having those two things, that's how people really get ahead. So I would really focus on meeting as many great people as I can and educating myself as much as possible.
Yeah, I love that. Huge. It's interesting. The last four shows that I did, we talked a lot about, networking and its impact on your net worth. That old saying, your net worth is your network, and vice versa. Love that. Also, congrats on coming in. I think you said seventh on that race, so that's huge. And San Luis Obispo, what a beautiful place to have a race, right? I love that area. And
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to ask you, because that's one of the things that I picked up on in your book. You touched on, hey, one of the years you read 80 books a year, or maybe that's your average or your goal or something like that. Are there any, hacks that you can share with us on how you're able to do that? Because that's a lot of books. And I'm a huge fan of books. It's one of the best ways, most affordable ways to gain some awesome, incredible knowledge. But yeah, any tips there?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I try to look at, I did my BA in college in business. I ended up getting a master's in cross-cultural studies, which was a lot of reading and writing. And then I just was like, I did so much per quarter. At times it was like over 5,000 pages of reading a quarter. I was kind of like, I'm like done reading forever or for years. So I didn't like read for a couple of years. But then as I started to pick it up again, I realized like, it's an ongoing education, and it's a lifelong learning thing, and it's so important that when we stop learning, also, and I think as we physically stop moving, either moving our body or moving our brain, we start to kind of die. And so if we want to be sharp, we have to continually be growing and learning. And so I look at it like it's like another job, but it's not like a job that like I can actually enjoy it and whatever. It's not like I have to go to work or whatever. It's like, no, this is like another thing that, Brian Tracy, a motivational speaker, says, if you want to earn more, you have to learn more. Right. It's just you have to be willing. And so I've watched as I've learn. It just gives you so many relevant things to share in conversations. Then people are like, I want to hear what that person has to say. And then it kind of all comes together when you write a book. It's like, oh, I can pull from this, I can pull from all these different things. And it's really fun. So some hacks that I used to do it. There are some speed reading techniques. Sometimes I'll use that. In general, I try to listen. I'm pretty auditory, so I try to listen to books quite a bit, especially biographies and other types of books, because you can speed them up a little bit, and I can usually retain pretty well. So if I start to find I'm getting really distracted, I just like maybe I'll turn it off, or I'll find another book that kind of engages me more. And then typically at night I'll take, not in every season, but a lot of seasons I'll take 10 to 15 minutes 20 minutes at night, and I'll just read. I'll just read a chapter, a couple of chapters, and just amazing. I'm just having the habits of doing that. And then one of the benefits about Spartan training is when I go on these long runs, I'll just have my phone with me, and I'll just be listening to something, and or I'm in the car, and like I've got a little bit of drive later today, and I'll listen to some books, and it's amazing. They say you got a 6 hour book. If you can speed it up a little bit and listen to it double time, you might get through halfway through the book on the way, on a drive, right? So it's something that, again, having, so there are different methods, but I think it's just really keeping it that this is as important, or maybe more important than the work that I'm doing. Because in the book I talk about this as well, that people like Warren Buffett read 4 or 5 hours a day. Mark Cuban reads several hours a day. These people are the busiest people in the world. Some of the smartest people in the world are reading all the time. And so again, it's not just, hey, what does ChatGPT tell me, or what can I find on Google? It's like, I want to get this and get these new ideas and get them in my mind, because it kind of feeds me in a way, but it also, it's just so applicable to, especially in investing, everything we do.
Mm-hmm. Huge. I love it. And when you can get it in, fit it in, right? So,
Yeah.
and there's all kinds of ways if we start being creative. So I love all those ideas there. So awesome. What would you say your thoughts are on, going from a non-success or a scarcity mindset to a success or abundance mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, there's been a lot of shifts. There's still things I'm learning in that area. I remember when I went to I was working even in medical sales, making 200K a year, and there was this cruise. It was like an investor cruise I went on, and it was like $6,000 or $7,000. And we were thinking like, this is like a lot of money after tax. This is probably like 4 or 5% of my total take home. It's like a lot of money to go do this. But I found a way at that event. I'd raised a little bit of money for a deal, but I found a way to create a partnership, and we raised $15 million together over the next year and a half. Right. So it's amazing too. Um, I guess just to have shifts in your mindset where you are investing in yourself and you're willing to, to put in time and money and effort. And I've realized too, even when, if I can hire a person, they can take care of something for me and I can find a way to generate more income or more revenue in some sort of a deal or something, then that is something I should do all day, every day. But where I was, how I grew up was, we went garage sailing and thrift store shopping, and it was all about trying to save money. But you can save $1, but if it cost you an hour or 2 hours, you didn't do very well, right? So it's, even now I still have to remind myself, okay, it's just better to like pay the full price or and to get it shipped to the house and whatever, like not worry about it, right? But those are some mind shifts I think that are happening. But I think mindset is. I actually don't even remember your original question, but I mean a lot of it comes down to mindset, right? Like how are we engaging life? How are we engaging, continuing to improve and grow and have this kind of mindset that's not a fixed mindset? Well, this is who I am. This is who I've always been. I'll never change. I have the ability to become whoever I want to be. I can create the life that I want to create. And so when I see people that are doing that, or I'm able to do that myself, it's just super inspiring. Like it's all like all of the limitations we have are really self-imposed. And so if I can just find a way to create a new possibility in my mind, then I can create a solution for how to get there.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, you're literally just, you know, dropping so much knowledge and so many, value bombs, as JLD would say that, it's just so much fun. Now let me ask you this, if you had one book recommendation and maybe one tech recommendation, like a Google Calendar or something that you use to help you out, what would you say, those are? Anything that might benefit the audience? And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Books. I've got a couple books that I love. I recommend these a lot. One is called The Gifts of Imperfection, which is by an author named Brené Brown. And she's more about living a wholehearted life, overcoming shame, getting into your story. There's a lot about that just, it found me at a time in my life that I just really needed that. I think it's a book everybody should read. It's about 150 pages, The Gifts of Imperfection. And I found when I have a breakthrough in my personal life or on the development side, it almost always leads to a breakthrough in my business or my career. Second one is a book that's also very applicable. It's a little more applicable to business, but it's called Never Split the Difference. And it's by Chris Voss, who's a former FBI negotiator and just incredible. And he just is, not just, hey, how do you always get what you want, but how do you create win-win with people so that when you're talking with your spouse, you're talking with your kid, you're talking with a coworker or a potential deal, a partner, how do you create situations that make sense for everybody and where people actually want to work with you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool. Both of those books I have not read, so looking forward to both of them. The Never Split the Difference is on my wish list, right? So it's probably been there for a couple of years, so I got to get around to that. So as we're getting close to wrapping this up, let me ask you this: do you have an ideal client, someone that is you can help like grow the fastest? So, and how can our audience support you? Is there a particular type of deal that they can send your way?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to support is to, obviously the new book is out, Fire Yourself. Check it out. It's on Amazon, so you can get it there. I think, we also are doing deals. We got a free ebook on my website of how to use inflation to your advantage. So that's at Bronson Equity. Good way to connect. And then we're also doing deals if people are looking to connect and do deals together. Primarily, we have some pretty established sponsors we work with or partners we work with. We always look at new deals, but we've got some folks we really like working with, especially in like the ATMs and car washes and oil and gas and things like that. But we're always looking to network and just trying to add value. But it's been great to be here today, Doug.
What would you say is the best way for our audience to connect with you? Is that bronsonequity.com?
Yeah, BronsonEquity.com is the best way. We have our investment club. We also are on all the social medias. We're doing a lot of YouTube videos, usually about 10 videos a month. We have the Mailbox Money Show, which is our podcast, which is a lot of fun. And so we do a lot of topics around passive investing and a lot of kind of topics around the book stuff as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Bronson, and to our audience, absolutely highly recommend, following and consuming everything that Bronson creates because it's a lot of value and you will learn a lot. And this stuff is life changing. You can see it's all around all aspects of your life is essentially what Bronson is teaching. So, thanks again, Bronson, for your time. And, we're going to go ahead and wrap up another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. So with that being said, I hope you all have an amazing day and don't forget to make this life magnificent.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.